While the GRE does not currently have a dedicated listening exercise section, the skills tested in the verbal reasoning section, particularly reading comprehension and text completion, require you to analyze and synthesize information presented in a way similar to a listening task. The following example is designed to simulate a GRE-level listening comprehension challenge, requiring you to infer, analyze, and synthesize information from a short audio-like passage. Instructions: imagine you are listening to a short lecture or a part of a scholarly discussion. Read the transcript below and then answer the questions that follow. Pay close attention to the speaker's tone, the relationships between ideas, and any implied information. Passage transcript: the prevailing view of the 19th century American West often romanticizes it as a frontier of limitless opportunity, a blank slate awaiting the industrious pioneer. But this narrative, a cornerstone of manifest destiny, conveniently overlooks a more complex and, frankly, more violent reality. The very concept of a blank slate presupposes a land unoccupied by its previous inhabitants, a historical falsehood. The displacement and decimation of indigenous populations was not a tragic byproduct of westward expansion. It was, in many ways, its precondition. Think of it this way: the land wasn't just claimed, it was actively cleared. The railroad, so often a symbol of progress, was also an engine of this displacement, bisecting traditional territories and bringing a flood of settlers who saw the land not as a living ecosystem but as a resource to be exploited. This reinterpretation isn't about shaming the past, but about accurately understanding the forces that shape the modern American landscape: social, political, and ecological. Questions: which of the following best describes the speaker's primary purpose in this passage? A. To argue for the preservation of historical railroad artifacts. B. To challenge a conventional romanticized view of westward expansion. C. To praise the resilience of indigenous populations. D. To detail the ecological damage caused by 19th century settlers. E. To provide a historical account of the U.S. railroad system. The speaker uses the phrase "a blank slate awaiting the industrious pioneer" to A. Praise the courage and determination of early settlers. B. Criticize the inefficiency of 19th century agricultural practices. C. Illustrate a historical misconception that the speaker intends to correct. D. Describe the physical appearance of the American West before settlement. E. Highlight the economic opportunities available to all. According to the speaker, the displacement of indigenous populations was a precondition for westward expansion. This implies that A. This displacement was an unintentional side effect of progress. B. The settlers were unaware of the indigenous populations in the area. C. The removal of indigenous peoples was a necessary step for expansion to occur. D. The indigenous populations voluntarily left their territories. E. The railroad's primary purpose was to transport indigenous peoples to new locations. The speaker's tone can be best described as A. Nostalgic and mournful. B. Celebratory and inspiring. C. Scholarly and corrective. D. Dispassionate and neutral. E. Apologetic and hesitant. Answer key and explanations. Correct answer: B. Explanation. The speaker explicitly states the passage is about challenging the prevailing view which romanticizes the West. The entire passage is dedicated to presenting a different, more critical perspective. Options A, C, D, and E are either too narrow or misrepresent the speaker's central argument. Correct answer: C. Explanation. The speaker introduces the phrase as part of the prevailing view, but immediately follows it with, "but this narrative," conveniently overlooks a more complex reality. This structure shows the speaker is using the phrase to set up a point of contention and then correct it. Correct answer, see explanation. The term precondition means a requirement or something that must happen before something else can. The speaker is arguing that the removal of indigenous peoples was not just a side effect but a necessary foundational step for the expansion to proceed as it did. Correct answer, see explanation. The speaker uses analytical language, reinterpretation, understanding the forces, and a structured argument to challenge a common belief. The tone is not emotional or apologetic, but rather academic and aimed at providing a more accurate understanding of history. Corrective fits because the speaker is actively seeking to correct a historical misconception. This exercise mimics the kind of deep reading and inferential skills needed for the GRE. You must not only understand the explicit information but also grasp the speaker's underlying purpose and attitude, the relationships between different ideas, and the implied meaning of key phrases.